Welcome to Licking Non-Vanilla, a sex-positive hour of talk about kink, sexual mores, and writing dirty words. So grab a cup of cocoa, your favorite easy chair, and the lube as we go sailing into the dark, sweet waters of all things naughty on Licking Non-Vanilla with your hosts Ralph Greco Jr. and M. Christian.
Hey, my little droogs, you've reached Licking Non-Vanilla, as you always do when you reach Licking Non-Vanilla. I'm Ralph Greco Jr., your host with the most on the East Coast, and clear across the country from me is...
Chris, otherwise known as M. Christian, from the smoky and post-apocalyptic wasteland that is Eugene, Oregon.
At the moment, with the wildfires.
At the
right,
moment,
Chris?
exactly.
What's it look like out there?
It's yellow. I mean, it's quite spooky because it looks like the Road Warrior out there. I mean,
That's
it's just
good.
nothing but yellow skies. You can't see more than a block at a time.
That's not good. We have a guest today, all the way from merry old England, and Chloe, we're sorry you guys lost the war.
Oh, me too. Gosh, I know. Hi, thank you for having me, both of you. I really appreciate it. Big fan of the podcast.
Isn't she sweet? Now, Chloe, you have a podcast there. Tell us about the podcast you have there.
Yeah, well, we're a little baby podcast called Stripper Stories Podcast. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts. And it just started off by me just talking about my experiences working in the sex industry, which is, been gentrified recently and is in the media everywhere. So I just thought, why not just talk about the things that have happened to me? And I invite loads of guests and friends on there, and they also do the same. So it's a pretty not fit for work podcast, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, we like that, Chris, right? Not fit for work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna just say it slowly. How people can find the name of the podcast.
It's Stripper Stories Podcast.
Stripper Stories Podcast, and we'll put
yeah.
that up on the blog when we blog about this episode, so people can find you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And you said you worked in the industry. How have you worked in the industry?
Well, I've been working in the industry for about 8 years. I started off as a dancer in like the strip clubs in London, the super clubs, and then I worked as a GFE, like Walker Girlfriend Experience, which is, I guess, a sugar baby to the guys in the States. And then I was a dominatrix as well in the dungeons. And then now I work post-COVID on adult work campsite, which is good from home. No COVID for me. And I'm also doing a little baby podcast, which is good. So that's me, yeah. And
you'll also give people where they can find you other places, right? Can we do that too?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'll send it all to you so you can put it in your show notes at the end if you
Wonderful.
like.
I would like to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And well, Chris, what's a dominatrix?
You're asking me?
I would do. I don't. We're extremely vanilla here. Although we call the show Licking Non-Vanilla, we don't even know what that means, Chloe.
Liar, pants on fire.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
basically.
sure that is not the case. Yeah. Have you
Isn't that a
ever been to a
wonderful
dominatrix?
Chris, could you just die with that accent or what, man?
Oh, absolutely. I'm having a hard time putting two words together right now because I'm just completely lost in the accent. I mean, you mentioned the war. Is there any chance that we could come back?
That's absolutely fine. I will lock you in the dungeon any day of the week. Don't you worry about it.
Oh, what a nice girl.
We want to become back of the we want to be part of the UK again. That's all there is to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
you are more than welcome, Chris.
If for nothing but the cheese, if nothing for the chocolate and the tea,
Exactly.
Push.
Absolutely.
So, Chloe, let's talk about something. You reached out, actually, and I'm glad you did, because something happened recently with Bella Thorne, and we want to. And this is a really interesting subject because Chris and I, on Licking Non-Vanilla, which is you have reached Licking Non-Vanilla, by the way, on the show, we try to take on as much as we can sex-positive wise or sexuality in general in the culture. Mm-hmm. And you reached out about this, want of a better term, a controversy over Bella Thorne and what she did recently. Let's talk about what happened and what you think of the repercussions.
Well, I mean, if you haven't heard already, it's everywhere, all over Twitter, everything. That there's this subscription platform called OnlyFans, and I'm sure you guys know about it. I most definitely know about it. I don't have one myself, but a lot of my friends do. And it's been around for a couple of years now, and it's a subscription-based platform where people can pay X amount of money to see people's private content, which is kind of like an Instagram, but a bit more slutty, a bit more naughty, but very sex positive. Women can just give as little or as much as they like. Well, Bella Thorne, seeing as she's like the Disney princess that's always been slightly a little bit a bit more sex positive, a bit of a feminist when it comes to sex. She's always been really out there with her body image and everything. She's tried to say that she's starting an OnlyFans account to showcase how a woman in her position in the limelight can also be like slutty and outward and, you know, very in touch with her sexuality. And she wanted to push OnlyFans forward for all the sex industry workers out there by doing this. So she's created this account. And she has specified on there that she's going to be showing like not fit for work content. So something that you won't be able to find on her Instagram, for instance. And if anyone's seen her Instagram, it's pretty raunchy. It's on the raunchiest side of Instagram. And so people paying for her subscription were expecting a little bit more than that. Now, when they paid for it and they've actually like uploaded all these images, they were just exactly the same as what she was putting on her Instagram account. So she basically overpromised and underdelivered. And which, I mean, a lot of people do all the time, but the one problem was that she made $1 million in a day.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard about
and then
that.
she made $2 million in a week.
Oh my God.
Which is, Chris, that's usually what you're making a week, right?
That's about that much.
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, you know, between the alimony payment and the keeping the maintenance up on the Ferrari and the palatial mansion.
That's the
about right.
problem, Chris. Yeah, but yeah, I'd heard that the numbers were crazy, and she, like you said, did not deliver.
No, I mean, it's not the problem that she opened an OnlyFans account. Anyone can do it. You guys could do it. You know, like my cat could make one. That's not the problem. I mean, it's just that she overpromised and underdelivered. And there's lots of other celebrities out there that have opened OnlyFans accounts, like Cardi B, for instance. But she does state, guys, you know, you're not going to see wet ass pussy. You're not going to see, anything other than a side boob and maybe some like backstage access to her videos, right? So people were understanding what she was offering. So basically there was just so many chargebacks with Bella Thorne to the point where now OnlyFans has decided to change their subscription platform to half the amount that it was before. So you could charge up to £200 for tips. Now it's only $100. And then you could charge up to £100 for subscriptions, and now it's only $50. So everybody's been tarnished with the Bella Thorne brush, unfortunately. So a lot of women have a lot to say, especially women who are like making their ends meet from this site, now only getting half the money that they were getting before. And not only that they're not getting their money until 30 days after they've earned it.
That really sucks.
Yeah,
that
the return
really
policy
sucks.
changed, right? Yep.
Yeah. So it was a week, and now it's 30 days. So everyone's like losing their minds. So yeah, it's not a good time to be an OnlyFans account holder right now, I don't think.
Well, you know what's interesting too, because I read that the OnlyFans said they did not change the policy because of what she did, which is
I read that too.
Right, you read that, right, Chris? They're kind of like covering their asses. But
it's still pretty suspicious, though. I mean, that they did this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty. The timing's kind of it's kind of interesting, but it's interesting and unfortunately interesting that someone with that kind of a large public presence could go in and lay waste to something very quickly and very easily. You know.
Yeah, it's a shame. It is a big shame. I mean, like I've said on a couple of other podcasts and to my friends as well, it's like coming from the strip clubs, we all know what it's like to just want to make your money and go home, you know. You're like, we want to. It's a very dog eat dog world. But for someone to, which is basically what Bella Thorne has done, she's made her money and now she's split, not doing the things that she's promised. And I don't know. It's a funny thing because I can completely understand. Like everyone's got to eat, whether it's like £2 million worth of eating or if it's like $200, right?
Yeah.
But But I mean, there is a way of doing it, and especially right now during COVID, in a struggling economy, anyway, and with an industry that has got so much negativity towards it as it is. I don't think this kind of needed it, but you can kind of get where she's coming from, Bella Thorne. I mean, she just tried to make some money, but just got it very, very seriously wrong. And I don't know. I'd like to think her heart's in the right place, but I don't know.
She made some comment about she was going on because she was doing a research for a film.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and another person that she was doing the film with said that that's not true. There's nothing going on. So it was kind of like a lot of that, Chris, we hear this often, that backpedaling,
Exactly. I know she's also done, she's trying to, say, oh, I didn't, I wanted to promote it. I wanted to promote sex work and the platform. But, again, it's like she didn't think this through because, ripping people off is, I don't know where that, logic comes in. I mean, it's like, you're supposed to be sex positive. You're supposed to be supporting this. And then you do something that ends up costing people their income because you just, kind of don't understand how the platform works. It just really doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't. I mean, and you think with someone who has access to so many ports of information that she would have at least maybe spoken to a couple of girls on OnlyFans to learn how it worked, or at least asked her assistants to speak to other people to, you know what I mean? It's just very naive. Yep. And quite sad, really. She just was so far removed from it that it was bound to cause an issue. But I mean, what can you do? It's like, I mean, I've seen it. Like I said, I've seen it so much in my career, in this industry, where people will step on others just for their own gain, and it's just this on a higher level. Women are saying now, we don't need any more muggles to come into the sex industry trying to dip their toe in the water and then just leaving with this catastrophic problem, which I completely agree with now after this. I mean, it's just going to get worse, I think. I'd be interesting to see how OnlyFans in the future continues to uphold their platform after this, because it's just, there's a lot of negativity at the moment.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, the naivete here reminds me of when some of the Kardashian ladies, not Kim Kardashian, but one or two of her sisters, they appropriated, and I'm using that term extremely loosely, images of album covers, and I think Biggie and Tupac and a couple other things, and they put them on T-shirts and then put their likenesses over them, and they just put them up on the net, not knowing, and I don't know how they didn't know this, but not knowing that that's illegal to take someone else's images and use them. And I sat back going, well, I'm an older guy, Chris, you and I are older. We would know enough. And we deal in intellectual property our own all the time. We would know enough not to do something like that. It wouldn't even cross our minds. But these young ladies didn't know that. Now, I don't know if it's a matter of naivete or if it's a matter of, and I hate to say this, not caring. And I'm wondering, with someone like Bella Thorne, like you just said, Chloe, it's like, didn't she have an assistant to say, whoa, slow down. This is probably not a great idea. And and not only that, but it's kind of illegal to rip people off. I mean, where's the mindset? Is it because I live kind of above normal things? I don't care, or I'm just kind of not bright enough to know?
Yeah, I agree.
And you don't know which it is.
That's the thing. As someone who comes from such a different, she's got such a platform anyway, but she comes from such a different background than I think anyone working on OnlyFans. She was going to be the biggest star to ever grace a platform. So if she was truly researching a movie role, she really did do a good job of it, did she?
Right. So the research itself, right, Chris? Definitely.
And that's what's so embarrassing about this. I mean, it's one thing to say, I screwed up, I want to make it better, and I did hear that she's going to try and talk to OnlyFans, but again, it's like, for someone who's already been pretty much caught in a falsehood, because there is no movie role, you have to take everything from that point as being like, look, we're not going to believe you until you actually, deliver. Because if you've already, told us a fib about one thing, then why should we believe you going forward, which makes the whole situation even worse.
Yeah.
And then you've got OnlyFans who, this is, like we mentioned before, really convenient on their part that they started to make this policy after this. It's like, and even though they've denied it, it's like, that's just doesn't ring true. I mean, it's pretty clear that you guys, like, typically with a lot of social media platforms, they overreact when something happens like this.
Mm-hmm.
And especially like you mentioned, I mean, it's just like, it's the worst possible time for this because so many people have now migrated over to OnlyFans who can't do live performances or don't feel safe doing, sex work, with intimate contact. So it's like, this is just the worst thing. I do hope she gets called on the carpet for this, or at least really sincerely tries to make an effort to fix it. Because if she doesn't, then this is going to be a mitigated disaster for her as well as OnlyFans.
Yeah, I mean, it almost reminds me of when Hustlers came out. Do you remember that movie that came out with Jennifer Lopez?
Oh, yeah.
And it's all about, yeah, and everyone was like, all the dancers who went, pretty much everyone I know went to watch that film, and they were like, the way they've done it is so great. I mean, obviously the storyline was not the most positive for the dancers themselves, but the way they publicized it all in the media and everything, and how Jennifer Lopez was graceful in her part in the film, and so was Cardi B. I can't imagine anyone in the sex industry going to watch a Bella Thorne movie again, whether it's about sex work or not. I think that if she'd done this well, there is such a community, a sex work community, sex industry community, where we would have all flocked to the cinemas and seen this movie that she'd researched with OnlyFans. But now it's just, I mean, even if there was a movie, there's definitely not going to be one now, and that's a shame because I mean the gentrification of the industry could be such a positive thing. I think it not being such a dirty kind of underground. Job, because it is a job just like any other job, really. And especially now because there is no clubs and environment open at all. So it would be really great to have it publicly aired on any platform, but just not in such a negative way.
Right.
And that's
exactly.
Yeah,
if it was positive, you could benefit from it, in a million ways.
Yeah. So it is a shame, really, but I'm so excited to see like my little self behind my computer screen at home. Like, unfortunately, I don't have an OnlyFans account, but I mean, I'm definitely going to keep up with my friends to see how it affects them like in the coming months. That would be interesting to see.
Well, and this could be a last point if we wanted to make it. It's the same thing happened for Chris and I because we're writers of erotica when 50 Shades came out. That could have been a boon. First of all, it was a boon to the books and movie industry, without a doubt. But it depends on how it was perceived, and it can be a positive thing because it becomes a mainstream thing, and then writers of erotica could get a leg up. Or if it was seen negatively, and it kind of cut down the middle there, So these big mainstream moments, like the movie you just mentioned, Hustlers, and Bella Thorne, a big star like that, going on OnlyFans. When major mainstream culture tickles into our industry, for want of a better term, it can be a widely wonderful thing, or it can be completely destructive.
And I love your term of gentrification of sex work. I think that's really an excellent term and a beautiful way of saying it, because it's like there's a certain power in mainstreaming, but there's also like a big negativity because it's like, again, people don't know how it works, and they end up like not treating it seriously. I mean, it's like they're like any industry. There's always risks as well as benefits, and someone who doesn't understand it could completely like warp the whole perception because of their ignorance. And that's the thing. It's like you mentioned 50 Shades. I mean, 50 Shades are great for erotica, but crap for the BDSM community because everything in there is like a poster child of what not to do. And so it's like it gave exposure, but it also probably hurt a lot of people because of its misinformation.
Absolutely. I mean, after 50 Shades of Grey, I know, like personally, through friends and myself, the amount of dungeons that were booked out in London. And when it came out, and people, their husbands and wives trying to frisk up their marriage and doing the little, I don't even remember, like a lot of my girlfriends were like, all of our regular customers who actually come in and use the dungeons for what they're supposed to be used for can't get a space because 50 Shades of Grey's come out. I'm like, oh no. And even then it was just like, you say it went straight down the middle for you guys. But it was very similar here. but for the dominatrixes themselves, you know. They were being asked to work and tickle people with, you know, feathers and use light floggers, but not actually, you know, and teach other couples how to flog each other, giving like little lessons on the book and things like that. It was just very odd. And so the underground dominatrix scene was also very affected. So it's interesting that you say that from the writer's perspective, you guys. Like, that's interesting for me to hear.
I think, you know, we're all affected. You know, all of us who work in the sex positive field, however we do it, you know, we can be affected. I mean, there's trickle down all the time, you know, and big and small. But the bigger the star is, or the bigger the footprint, you know. Chloe, tell us a little bit about, I know you don't have a lot of time, and I just want to get in as much as possible. Tell us a little bit about what's coming up for you in the future, and you know what you're working towards at this moment. Beyond, you know, I know the podcast and all stuff, but tell us what's in the Chloe mix at the moment.
Well, I mean, ultimately, just the podcast, and I'm working on adult work, which is actually, I mean, I've been asked a few times, like, is it different, like, money wise and like time wise to working in the clubs? And yeah, absolutely, yeah, it's a lot. I get a lot more sleep. I'm a bit more chilled out, and I don't get like, I don't know, I'm not drunk every night, or at least like on the party vibe. It's kind of nice to just be a little grandma getting up at like 9 o'clock or like 8 o'clock in the morning, which is early for me, and working a day's work, which is like strange for us in the industry that have been working crazy hours. So Corona's done quite a lot for my skin. So I'm like thankful for that.
You don't have to worry about falling off your heels either, you know?
Exactly.
Right.
Like, exactly. You know, I've got all right skin, and my liver is still working.
So well, there you go. What else did you have that kind of life? Yeah, really. That's funny.
But yeah, so at the moment, I'm just like living a healthier lifestyle. And doing the podcast. It gives me a lot of time to do that and meet great people like you and have like interesting conversations. So for now, I think I'm going to stay at home working online. That for me, even if the clubs did open, I don't really see people spending a lot of money in a strip club anymore. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you been to a lot of strip clubs in your life?
Oh no. I mean, Chris, I can't speak for Chris, but my strip club experiences have been very well. I used to work for one here in the city as doing their external PR a little bit. So that's when I would go in, but my strip club experience are very, 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 very little. I don't do them, and I don't know about Chris, but
yep, same thing. It's like I think I've probably been to 6 in my entire life.
Right.
You know, and that was just kind of like with friends, kind of like, hey, let's do this kind of thing, as opposed to like being a regular, you know, kind of. Even though I'm a big proponent, like Ralphie is, of sex work, and you know, as you know, tremendous respect for people that do it. It's just not one of those things that kind of, you know, went for me. I'm, you know, the last time I think I went was like, you know, boy, it was like probably 10, 12 years ago.
Oh, it's been a while for me.
Well, a while.
Yeah,
but I like the way that that like how people are starting to adapt now with the pandemic. You know, like, you know, a lot of like, you know, like you mentioned before, like yourself, a lot of people are now going online using things like OnlyFans or Instagram or virtual strip clubs and so forth. There's actually a strip joint up here. I live in Eugene, and there's one in Portland. Devil Dog. I'm sorry if I missed that wrong, but they're actually really have interesting ways of coping with the pandemic, because now they have like a drive-through stripping, and they have like, you know, the strippers will deliver food, and they'll always be masked up, or they'll do things in public with like car washes and such. So there's no actual human contact, or even like in the same proximity. I do think that's kind of inventive how they're doing that, and also know some places in Vegas are doing the same kind of thing.
Yeah, and Chloe, just to be honest, you know, completely frank, I only go. The only stripping I get into is when Chris does it. You know, of course, that's when I'm all in. You know.
You send me a little link to this. I'll definitely have a watch.
Absolutely.
You make sure you film it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect.
So we are back at Licking Non-Vanilla. We were just talking to Chloe, and unfortunately, over the transcontinental line here, we lost her at the very, very tail end before she gave us all her deets. But I will promise to give you all her deets on the blog about this show. But remember, so you'll get all that good stuff about her. She's going to send all that good, juicy stuff, Chris, she said. And
Yeah, she was a delight. That was absolutely delightful.
Yeah,
She's
cool
so wonderful. We definitely got to get her back on again for sure.
We say that about all, I guess, right?
That's true. That's true. We haven't had a sucker so far. I mean, it's just like, knock on wood.
Yeah, the hosts are suckers, but everybody else is great.
Exactly.
We're waiting now for another lady to come on, and I guess we'll just BS a little bit right now. But we've often said this about the intersection of mainstream culture in the sex world and how it is good and bad both.
Exactly. Like we mentioned before about like 50 Shades. I mean, 50 Shades. I mean, the people in the erotica world were like squealing like schoolgirls. I know, like, a publisher who shall not name nameless was like, okay, we're gonna label every book we've gotten in the catalog now with something to tie to 50 Shades. But meanwhile, the BDSM world was kind of tickled that they're finally getting a little bit of recognition, but also infuriated because the information in the book is wrong, on every level.
Yeah, it's just, but this happens all the time with, happens in science fiction too, in the little niche that we love in science fiction. When Star Wars came out, suddenly everything was science fiction.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I mean, I often like to say that Star Wars kind of ruined science fiction because,
it did.
For a while there, it was kind of like underground and it sold well enough, but not too much. And then after Star Wars, it's like, oh my God, the market got flooded.
Yeah.
And Harry Potter's the same way. I mean,
Exactly.
Harry Potter, a lot of people blame Harry Potter for ruining fantasy because now every fantasy book has to have, the chosen one and the school and all this kind of stuff. It's just like, you're right. It's like it's the good news is it generates interest. The bad news is it usually kind of like floods the market with a lot of copycats.
Right. Yeah, and this is what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's funny because when you work in a niche industry or a niche part of that industry, as we do, I don't want accolades because of that. I like a normal a normal airing as anybody else gets, warranted to how much work you do, of course. But then sometimes when things blow up, and you initially go, this is fantastic. I mean, this is what I've been working for all my life to get here. And then a couple of months go by and the dust settles, and you find you're in the mainstream. A lot of what was special about what you did gets diluted.
Exactly.
And it's almost like, it was like the ubiquitous cult band when I was in high school. There were certain bands that were cult bands. They would sell out like little theaters in the area and do their tours, and anybody was into them. You had like a cadre of people who were into them, and it was cool because everybody kind of knew a secret. And then occasionally one of those bands would blow up. I'm thinking of Rush because there was a band like that. And that's what happens. And then all of a sudden, everybody loves them, and you're like, well, I was into them years ago, Now,
I know. It's like, I mean, the Marvel movies are a good example. I mean, I was so tickled to finally see the comic books that I had loved as a kid, suddenly getting these wonderful mainstream big blockbuster movies. But then, little jokes would just fly by a lot of people's, over their heads. And I'm like, wait a minute, I remember that, and that's from this, and and so forth. I mean, I like also the fact that sometimes these things can really get in, bring in new interest into a genre, but at the same time, when it's a bad version, it also kind of like like when they remake classic movies, it's like, why the hell did you do this?
God,
I mean,
please.
I mean, it just makes my blood boil. I mean, if you're remake a movie, remake a bad movie.
Yeah, right.
I make it
try
better.
that, right?
Yeah,
I know.
It's like instead we have like a remake of The Manchurian Candidate. We have a remake of like all these other classic movies. Like,
movies.
What the hell are you doing? It's the original one was a masterpiece. What the hell could you do?
Or they think like a reimagined version, like a live action of Grinch. I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, why would you even why would you even tape that? Why would you even attempt something? I mean, I'm saying why. I know why, but the point is that, like you're saying, there are just things that you look at and go, maybe if you had an original idea, your own, as opposed to doing something else or making another mind-numbing sequel. It's like, God, what are we doing here? You know?
Yep. Well, and I don't understand why. I mean, that's the fact of the matter is, it's like it's easy to get financing. So if you say like we're going to remake Casablanca and we got fill in the blank Keanu Reeves interested in it, and the people who with the money go, okay, I can see that. It's like this person's a big name. The original movie's got some track record, so but meanwhile, it's like all the independents that are really weird and unusual, they don't get any kind of attention whatsoever. And so it's just they end up doing it because it's a safe bet, and unfortunately, it's like a wrong decision on every level.
I know. Now, Chris, I'm going to try to get our next guest on.
Cool.
So let's hold on, everybody. I hate to do this to you like this, but sometimes you just got to take how technology leaves it and
exactly
go with what you can. So here, I'm making a call now. Hello.
Hi there.
It's Mei Ling, right?
Yes, it's me. Hello.
How you doing?
Oh, fantastic.
Can you hear Chris?
Doing
That's
very
Chris.
well.
Can you hear
How about
Chris?
yourself?
Say hi, Chris.
Cool. Hello.
Hi.
That's Chris, Mei Ling.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you guys hearing me? Am I clear? Is
Yes.
it too
perfectly
loud?
clear.
Yes. How can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah. Let
Wonderful.
me just. Okay, this is so much better.
Good.
This is great. This is perfect.
Good. Well, we are talking right now, as we speak, because we're talking and we're speaking, Chris. We're talking to Mei Ling, and we're going to talk all about what she does, which is some pretty interesting stuff, actually. Not your normal run-of-the-mill go into a store and buy a carton of milk kind of stuff. She's an interesting lady, and she works on what I would call the sex-positive side of the world and business. And Mei Ling, let's say exactly in your words what you do and what you are, so we don't get any kind of confusion.
Thank you. Well, first of all, what is normal nowadays, right?
That's true.
Exactly.
True.
So who knows? This might be the new norm.
Oh, I hate that term. Go ahead. So tell us in your words. I want to hear how you describe it.
If people want to label it, I would say I'm a professional dominatrix. But what I personally do is I take my submissives on an explorative journey to explore their submission deeper and give a little bit more purpose into their lives. It's a spiritual, very connective experience and overall very healing journey.
And does one do what you do, or one being you, across cam or in person or both?
Pre-COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Remember, that's going to be the new BC, right? It's going to be PC. I was doing it in person, and now obviously for everybody's security and safety risks, I am doing just online. So this is on cam, through text, voice messages.
Okay.
You can still get that experience. You can still feel that power when you speak with someone, when you're allotting a certain amount of time to really hone in on a session with somebody and truly give away your power to them.
So, but do you find that you had to increase, change, or up your skills in that way because of doing it the way you're doing it now?
Absolutely. I just started doing or focusing more on my online work this quarantine. And, changing from in-person to online, you can't do certain things. Right. So you get a lot more creative with your words because now you're just capturing all the senses with just your words and describing every single thing. Can be very juicy as well.
That's interesting. Because, being writers like we are, Chris, I guess words, we always say words are important, but I guess what Mei Ling is saying is they're very important these days.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It means a lot. And I know that saying something is one thing, and then actually physically doing it and participating in the act is another thing as well. So you can play in the realm of the fantasy and talk about all of these things which may not come into fruition, but it's very fun to talk about.
Right.
And the actuality of it
Now,
when it comes time.
extrapolating from that, then, do you find there's things you're exploring with your clients that you don't see now because you can't see now that you would not normally do in person?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk, and I guess if you guys are writers, it's just like writing fiction,
Yeah.
It's the fantasy realm. So, yeah, things get real bizarre.
I mean,
Aliens, monsters, you name it.
well, I was thinking only because you have the facility of online and words now, and like you said, you can't create a monster live or something. But I was thinking, say there's for instance, there's a thing you don't do if somebody were to come see you live and in person, but something that you would do now because you have the safety of not seeing them in person. Do you consider that kind of stuff?
I do. One of them being a lot of taboo play.
Gotcha.
And
Excellent point.
It's very to me, it's a very close one to me because, some of us grew up with brothers, sisters,
Mm-hmm.
our elders have a certain attraction to them, and you're not going to act on it in person per se,
Mm-hmm.
but it's very nice to think of that mommy play or daddy play or ooh, that brother
Right.
as a cuckold or something, So it's very juicy to talk about without the actuality of bringing in their brother or sister
Yeah.
or whatever in a non-consensual way.
Now, are there some hard and fast rules that you have in person that you also have on online online encounters?
Online, I'm a little bit more lenient. I mean, with my words, obviously, I paint a very broad painting.
Mm-hmm.
In person, I am very much stricter as such with like no nudity,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
no worship in such a manner of like pussy worship or
Right.
any of that. But when it's online and they physically cannot touch me, those boundaries are a bit lower.
Interesting. So,
Mm-hmm.
Chris, jump in here. Give. I know you're dying to ask her some questions. So go ahead.
Well, I think it's fascinating because it's like it is. You point out because one of the things I've heard from a lot of people is like they look at this whole situation with the COVID as being like what you can't do. And I like the fact that you're touching on it actually is more liberating, because you can actually use fantasies that you would never, produce in reality. And again, it's the power of imagination. So I think that's absolutely wonderful. Because it's like, it's this kind of adaptation to how this is working. We were just talking to someone about like stripping and so forth and how that's had to change. But I do think it's like, because a lot of like, dom work, or at least I shouldn't say a lot, but some dom work, it does involve like a fantasy. It's a manifestation of a fantasy, so you can actually sort of amplify that. So this is really cool.
Well, I guess we have to adapt, right? I mean, that's what separates us from the little Bo Weevils in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always say disposable thumbs, but let's just take a second. I just want to let everybody know you're listening to Licking Non-Vanilla, and we're talking to a very interesting Dom today because I didn't even think about any of these aspects where we're touching on. And before we go any further, May, can you give us where people can find you? I'm going to write it up on the blog when we put the episode up, but I'd like to hear it from your pretty little mouth to tell people how and where they can find you presently.
Absolutely. They can find me on my website, which is Miss Mailing, MissMaeling.com. And then I'm very active on social media with Twitter, which is at Miss Mailing, MissMaeling. And for Instagram, it is Adorable Dom, just all one word.
Okay.
Adorable and then DOMME.
Well, we've seen your picture, cool. So I could say that title is very true. Adorable, definitely. So, tell us how a nice girl like you got into this profession.
Oh, wow. This is, I'm going to say trigger warning at first.
Okay.
Yeah. A little bit of a backstory. At the age of 15, I was raped, and that's how I lost my virginity. 16, 17, I was held hostage and sexually assaulted by a family friend. And for the longest time, you can imagine, I hated men.
Right, I'm sure.
I absolutely was just living full of fear and kind of living like a ghost. And for me, there was a little part of me that was twisted and was like, I kind of like this though.
Okay.
And so later on, when I met someone who I really trusted, I asked them to rape me again, or like play that scenario.
Right.
And that moment just released everything for me. I got to experience everything that has happened to me and really come to terms with it. And then I became curious of like, well, what would it feel like if I was on the other side? You know, quote unquote, consensually raping someone else.
Right.
And that's how I found the community. And, you know, there are a lot of men out there that want to have this happen to them.
Oh, sure.
And the men who want this to happen to them are just so sweet and caring and respectful, most of them.
Right.
And yeah, they really changed my perspective on men in my life and how supportive they can be and how caring they are. And that was the moment that I was like, I want to do this, like live this life. So it's been a beautiful journey, a really healing journey for me, really meditative, and just an overall beautiful experience. I know this doesn't take place of therapy, but it was therapeutic for me. And so I love to hold the space for others in such a manner as well.
Well, you determine how it fits in your life or doesn't, you know? And I mean, if it's certainly therapeutic for you, you're the only one who can determine that anyway. But I like the fact that seemingly you're learning from the experience as much as anybody else is, you know?
Absolutely. Everything is a learning experience. Even if you do it a second time, honestly, it's not the same exact time that you did it as the first time. And you'll gain a little bit something different from it, a new perspective, a different feeling. With sessions, even with my regulars, you might think you know somebody and you might think like, oh, this is what we always do though. But you know, it's very dependent on their day and what's going on with them presently that could affect a lot of different things. So.
Well, you know, Chris, we've been involved in giving classes at kink conventions, and we've met a lot of people in the you know in the world of domination and submission, you know, and I think what we're talking about here is the main ingredient to it, which is ultimately being open enough to learn, and also people coming to with a mutual respect, you know.
Absolutely, and that's why thank you very much for sharing that. That is very powerful and very poignant. I'm just so happy that that BDSM has been such a positive and therapeutic aspect in your life. That's extremely touching and
it's nice to hear. Actually.
Exactly, extremely powerful. I mean, I know that it is, you know, I wouldn't say common, but it is something that does exist in the BDSM community. People who use it as a therapeutic practice or to help, issues like self-esteem or other factors as well. I know I definitely have. So it's nice to see that coming out, because for some people it's just fun. I mean, that's all there is to it. But and I'm glad also that it's helped process this, because I think that's, again, it's like, I think, a very very powerful tool. And I really want to thank you too, because it's like, your attitude about being a dom is really very positive and very nurturing, I guess I could say, without knowing too many details, which sometimes some doms are just like, yep, whatever, I'll spank you and where's the check. But there's a sense of real care in what you're doing.
Yeah, I guess people say it's like the mommy dom type of thing, but it's
Hmm.
also, it really throws people for a loop when they show up and they're just like, oh, wow, you look so sweet. And I'm petite, I'm very small, I'm 5'4".
Right.
So it's just, you really hurt me. And then dom mode goes on, and I'm like, you want me to hurt you? You want me to be mean? And they're like, oh, I'm so scared.
Right, it's dichotomy, right? The dichotomy's fantastic. You're like, where's that coming from?
It's the quiet ones you got to
You always
worry
got to
about.
watch out for. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, quiet. We watch for the quiet ones, exactly.
It reminds me of the people who are in those food eating competitions, and you're just like, really? That guy is gonna eat all
I
of
know,
that?
right? Yeah, he's like real skinny. How's he gonna get all those hot dogs down? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. May, tell us all what's going on for you currently, and what's going to come up in the future as best you can tell. What you're into mostly now, and what you're working on.
Currently, I just started filming a bunch of clips, so
Okay.
that's been a whole new
Cool.
journey, learning a lot about technology, really.
Oh,
The
yeah.
back end of all this work, editing, wow. Um, and then for the future, yeah, just continuing growing in this community and really shining light on how you don't really have to be the dom that everybody thinks that you should be.
Yes.
The way
Yes.
that people look at a dom, you think leather, latex, oh, she's so strict and military. And yeah, that is one archetype. But you can really be your cute self, your sweet self, and just guide people in a different way. And that is really just be yourself, and people are going to love you for it.
Well, that's the big thing, right, Chris? The confidence to be
Absolutely.
yourself, right? Absolutely.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that, because that is very true. It's like, it's a universal kind of myth that people think I should be this kind of dom, as opposed to, create the dom that you want to be. And it could be anything. I mean, it could be silly, it could be fierce, it could be elegant, it could be, playfully chaotic. That's the whole thing. It's just like, create the one that you speaks to your inner dom, as opposed to trying to find something that you wear like a uniform.
Right. Exactly.
Absolutely. And people will know when you're not yourself.
I'm sure. I think that's true. Yeah, sincerity's going to come through, right?
Yeah. A really good little thing that's going to throw people for a loop is I call one of my subs dad.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and our play, he's over a year, and he is a father in real life. But he treats me as if like, you know, please drink water, please make sure you've eaten. He just checks up on me to like ensure that
Aw.
I am taking care of myself. And I think that's like the sweetest thing outside of play, like
Yeah.
during play it's very different. But outside of play, I'm like, oh, yes, I will eat because I'm awful at that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just nice when people care for each other on even the most cursory level. Whether you have a deep relationship with somebody or not even. I always think that it's just we have too little of that these days. Where we could be civil. That's a whole that's a whole nother argument. But it's just nice when people are caring and nice to each other and approach each other, even if they have differences of opinion. They approach each other sweetly and respectfully. I mean, we could do with more of that across the board, on every level.
Very much so. And I mean, especially nowadays, with instant gratification,
Yeah.
instant everything.
That's true.
And if you don't get that, you're just out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, just talk to me like I'm a human, a basic human, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You pay me first to be mean to you. But after, otherwise I'm just a really nice person.
Right. Just a nice lady. All right, so let's do this one more time. Tell everybody where they can find you. I'm going to reiterate it again on the blog, but tell everybody where they can find you because sometimes when people listen in onto the show, they come in right now or they got the last couple minutes, and I want to make sure they get all the facts, Jack, about you, Mei-Ling. So give it to us again.
You can find me at missmailing.com, MISSMAELING, or find me on Twitter, Miss Mei-Ling, or Instagram, Adorable Dom, DOMME, all one word.
And Chris, I'd say adorable inside and out, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mei-Ling, we can't thank you enough for taking the small amount of time you did today. Moving along as we tried to do all the time, but we thank you so much for coming on and giving us your insight, which I find, and I think I can speak for Chris, very refreshing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You just been nothing but the bomb, lady.
Oh, thank you so much.
So sweet. And we'll be in touch because once the show goes up, probably next week from when we're recording it, I'll send out the blog and you can tweet and twat it to everybody and we'll do everything we need to do. But thank you very much. You continue to have best of health, mental and physical, and thank you so much for coming on Licking Non-Vanilla.
Absolutely. Take care of yourself, and thank you very much.
Thank you. I wish you guys the best and stay safe wherever you are. Hope you're not near any fires.
You stay well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, Chris.
Yes?
Wasn't that wonderful?
That was wonderful. She is absolutely delightful. I mean,
I say it time and again. The people that we get on the show, other than the hosts, are just
yeah. We're the only doubtful part of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the only
ones.
Chris, we are definitely the weak link. Without it,
exactly. We got to step up our game here because we're starting to look. It's like pretty soon it's going to be like, oh, do we have to listen to those guys again? It's just like put the hosts on all the time. But yeah, we're fairly fortunate to have some really wonderful people, and I definitely think we should have so many people back on again just to talk more.
That's
because
the problem.
There's always thing. It's like there's always thing to learn.
That's the problem. We're starting to get a lot of people that want to come on the show, which I'm very happy about.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, well, we can't keep up with. If we're going to have people back, it's hard to keep up with that,
Exactly.
Because you want to have more people on, but at the same time, everybody we have on, I want to revisit,
Exactly. You got it.
It's funny. It's funny. All right. So this has been, I believe, Licking Non-Vanilla.
Yep.
As it always kind of is, and it's just been great. It's just been wonderful, and very happy about it. And this show has been phenomenal. And
it has been.
So,
it has been always delightful.
Yes, and we are always delightful, Chris. All right, so I will talk to you. I'm sure very soon again.
Yep.
This has been Ralph Greco Jr. and
Chris, otherwise known as M. Christian.
And this has been Licking Non-Vanilla. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you very soon.
Very, very.
Take care. Bye-bye.
And visit us on the web at www.lickingnonvanilla.com.